Imagine buying your dream waterfront home, only to find out part of what you thought you owned, you actually don't. Or worse, you build a dock and you get fined for it. If you're buying or selling a waterfront property here in Jacksonville, understanding where your property actually ends is not as simple as a fence line. Hi, I'm Amanda Bolwell, a Jacksonville waterfront real estate agent, and today we're talking about something that confuses a lot of buyers and even some sellers. Where your waterfront property line really is, and how Jacksonville's unique regulations can impact what you can and cannot do with your land. It's not always what you see. Let's start with the biggest misconception. Most people assume their property goes right up to the water, and sometimes even into it. But in many waterfront properties here in Jacksonville, especially along the intracoastal, riverfront, or marsh areas, that's not actually true. You might see a bulkhead, a seawall, or just a grassy edge, but your legal property line could be landward of that, right at it, or slightly beyond it. And that matters because it affects what you can build, maintain, or modify. The Army Corps of Engineers has jurisdiction of all navigable waterways in the US, and they have easement rights on some land along certain waterways. That land may be part of a waterfront property you're considering purchasing. That's important to know as it may affect what you can develop and build on your property. One term you'll often hear is the mean high water line. Now, don't worry, we're not going to get overly technical here. But essentially, this is the average high tide line over time. And in Florida, that line often determines where private property ends and where state-owned land begins. So even if your backyard looks like it goes into the water, legally it may not. And that's especially important when it comes to things like docks, boat lifts, and shoreline changes. This is where things can get expensive if you don't know the rules. In Jacksonville, if you want to build a dock, repair a bulkhead, add a boat lift, or even modify your shoreline, you're likely dealing with permits from agencies like the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, or DEP, the US Army Corps of Engineers, and your local city or county offices. And here's the key: just because something exists doesn't mean it was permitted correctly. And just because your neighbor has it doesn't mean you can build it too. I've seen buyers assume they can add a dock only to find out later that it's restricted, it requires variances, or it's not allowed at all. I plan to do a future video about docks, boat lifts, and permits, what you can and can't do on the water, so please subscribe to my channel so you won't miss that. Now let's talk about marshfront properties, because this is where things get even more nuanced. In areas around Jacksonville, especially along tidal marshes, where you may be dealing with protected wetlands, conservation easements, environmental setbacks, that beautiful marsh view, it may come with restrictions on clearing vegetation, building structures, extending docks, and sometimes the usable portion of your lot is much smaller than it appears. That doesn't mean it's a bad property. It just means you need to understand what you're buying. Now let's talk surveys, title, and due diligence. This is why I always recommend the current survey, reviewing title work carefully, and understanding any easements or restrictions. A survey will show property boundaries, setbacks, any easements or encroachments, and for water properties, it can also help clarify how your lot relates to the water. Because again, what you see is not always what you own. Here are a few mistakes I see people make. Assuming the backyard goes to the water, skipping permits for small projects, not verifying dock rights before buying, and relying on what a neighbor has done. And honestly, these mistakes can cost thousands or limit your ability to enjoy the property the way you envisioned. But it's not all doom and gloom. I mean, look at this. The waterfront is absolutely beautiful. There is good news with all of this. When you understand these regulations ahead of time, you can choose the right property for your lifestyle, avoid costly surprises, and even find hidden value in properties others overlook. Some buyers actually prefer marshfront homes because of the protected views and the natural beauty. If you're thinking about buying or selling waterfront home here in Jacksonville, I'd love to help you navigate all of this before it becomes a problem. Just reach out and we can set up a time to talk. No pressure. And if you found this helpful, make sure you like and subscribe because I share real local insight to help you make smart decisions when it comes to waterfront living.